welcome back to the second half of this, the Film Alchemist podcast double feature, the show where we take the movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their sex magic. It's not sex magic.
Not here.
It's a
Not
dark, cruel magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my friend, co-host, and a warped, frustrated old man,
Alex Dandino.
That's right. We are here today, finishing the second half of the double feature, selected by our dear friend Taryn Conway over on Patreon. So I hope you guys enjoyed Harvey. That's on your feeds right now. And this, one of the big shows that we had in mind when we created a movie podcast, this was one of the big ones. We've been holding off for a long time, and we're glad to finally get to it. Before that, old man Potter over there is going to handle some business.
Well, you all owe me taxes. No.
God.
All right. I have no idea at the time of this airing what the big social media post will be, but in the wars, I'm sure we're on it somewhere. Whatever's left, we're on it. You just find us at Film Alchemist, at Film Alchemist Pod. I don't know what our handle is anymore, to be honest with you. Whatever it's called, just look up Film Alchemist. We'll be there. And, of course, you can email us, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. What else do we do? Of course, rate, review, subscribe. Guys, we are giving you gold. We're about to talk about
5 stars and a couple sentences wherever you find YouTube, Film Alchemist. That's a big one.
5 stars. I swear to God, I'm coming to your house and hiding your Uncle Billy. I'm hiding Uncle Billy's.
We're gonna beat the shit out of Uncle Billy no matter what. That's going down.
This is gonna be an all anti Uncle Billy pod for sure.
I don't want to go as far as to just say fuck Uncle Billy, but close. The other one, patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. The best way to support the show. Taryn got this double feature created because of her generous support over on Patreon.
Speaking of socials platforms, it's only $1 to join our Discord, and I know the Discord will be there. Like, there's no reason not to.
You're going to be sniffing around for scraps when this is over.
Just come over to our version of Pottersville, which is the Discord. There's a bitchin' bar.
Come fucking hang in our social slums over there. All right. That's the business. You guys heard the business before on Harvey. A little more business. Again, patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. All right. Let's pretend for a moment we weren't cruel, scurvying little spiders. We're trying to get Patreon dollars. I think I, like many people, right? I have the long family history with It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm-hmm.
So when my mom remarried, I would have been 6 to 9 years old, in that range. My new father, who went on to legally adopt me, every Christmas Eve we had to sit down as a family and watch It's a Wonderful Life. And I remember as a kid, there was nothing I dreaded more than having to watch It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
Because when you're pre-10 years old, there is nothing in this movie that I could relate to. I didn't have a care in the world. I had no responsibilities. You're just like, yeah, George Bailey should leave. He should do whatever the fuck he wants. He should fucking yell at everyone. Who cares? Because you're a child. This is one of the few things that was instilled in me as a young age as a tradition that I still happily carry on in my older age. I remember even in college in my 20s, I was so excited I didn't have to watch It's a Wonderful Life anymore at the holiday time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll never forget, me and Amy were living in California. We weren't back home with our families for Christmas for the first time, and it was killing us. And we were reaching for anything that made us have a connection to our family at home, right? And I turned on It's a Wonderful Life, and I cried like a little bitch. And I still do. Every day I watch it, I weep and cry and feel an overwhelming sense of joy and an excitement to get back to my life when the movie's over. It is truly one of the greatest films I've ever watched in my life. I'm glad that as I aged, I found a new appreciation for it. So, Alex, opening thoughts on It's a Wonderful Life.
I, like you, have a very similar story. This was a movie we watched every Christmas Eve. There are 2 movies that we have to watch every Christmas. They've shifted over the years, but these 2 movies have to be watched before any Christmas is had. One is the Alistair Sim Christmas Carol. I have no idea why, but this is my father's request. And the other one is It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life is a very important movie for my father. Again, I could not surmise the meaning for at least 2 decades of my life. Couldn't care less. Yeah. I was like, I don't give a shit about this. I don't understand. All it seems is like pappy crap. I don't care. As soon as I started college and was away from my family was when I started to understand why it mattered. And actually, there's a very in San Diego, there was a small equity theater down there. Like my folks started living out here in 2005. So when I started school in San Diego, I was an RA, and I picked the short straw and had to stay in San Diego. So my parents came down to Christmas one year, and my dad and my mom found a small equity theater down there that did basically they did It's a Wonderful Life as a radio play. So the stage was set. There was a guy who came down that actually was a Foley artist from LA. He came down, and the actors literally did it as if there was a radio hour. It was fucking phenomenal. We saw it probably 3 years running until finally the theater, I think, closed down. But it was an absolutely wonderful experience. It's a beautiful story, and the movie is richer. When you see other versions of it, the movie is that much better. But it was a very fascinating experience. But it's a very meaningful moment, very meaningful movie for my family. Having said all that, yes, it's nice to have other appreciation for it in other contexts, but it is a really beautiful movie, and I will say it is definitely one of the greatest films ever made. It is literally the definition of Capra-esque. So let's start bitching about Uncle Billy. No, I'm kidding. That was like... No, but
it is this kind of... It's also a quintessentially American story.
It's a very American story.
Right? Where it's this... You can
do
anything. You can be everything. You can have anything, right? Mixed with the reality of where you were born, where your lot is when you're born, right? The pull of capitalism and getting everything for yourself versus maybe helping other people, right? And there is this small town versus the big open world thing that really related to my childhood, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But George Bailey becomes this quintessential person, right? I think as I've gotten older, you see that George Bailey has a bit of a martyr complex.
Yes.
He's definitely not the victim of as much as I imagined as a younger man. But what he captures so perfectly, and I don't even know that this part is American as much as just human, is that there has to be something greater that I'm meant for. Right? That I wake up every day and there's some amazing unfulfilled potential out there that I'm not reaching. And it just means more to me every year that I'm alive. And also I'm not reaching some fucking grandiose meaning of my life. It's something that is just so primal when you watch
I
film.
think that I know me personally, I wake up most days feeling like a failure. And what's nice is... But like, what is important
not to laugh at your many failures, but
but that's exactly. But what it is important, and like, this is the thing about George Bailey's journey, is waking up and realizing that you have achieved something. Like, your life is worth something because there are these people around you that love you this much. And like, to me, for one, like, I think what's interesting historically is, so for one, this was Jimmy Stewart's first movie after he returned. Because Jimmy Stewart served in World War II. So this was his first movie after he got back, first post-war role. And I think, besides Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and Philadelphia Story, but mostly Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, this, I believe, really solidifies what Jimmy Stewart's legacy is, this movie.
Oh, well, this has those like close-ups that like he is working in this movie.
Not only that, this is for being 1946, not a lot of movies address what this movie addresses at the very top of the flick, which is God talking to Clarence and saying like, hey, Clarence,
or
this dude's about to
alien overlords.
Right. Or Xenu, whatever you were into. I don't know. But literally God tells Clarence, like, hey, this guy's about to punch out early, and you're going to have to, like...
This simple fuck's about to jump in the river. I need you to get down there.
I need you
He
to get
calls
down
him
there.
simple. I was like, what the fuck?
This poor, simple bastard. Now, okay. Griffey and I,
before we start diving in, though...
Before we get into this...
There is an element to what you were saying, right, that I wanted to get back to.
Sure.
Which is this, your life has meaning, right? Because I think the juxtaposition between Mary and George is so fascinating. Because I feel this in my life a lot. I look at my wife, and she's just so happy and content. And to her, she's achieved everything she ever really wanted to, right? Like, we want to see our kids get healthy to old age and have their own families, and then we can wither and whatever. But she's so happy and content, right? And so many of us creative types, I think every time we're having a moment of happiness, we feel this fucking looming specter, right?
Yeah.
That you should be doing something, you fail. And there's something about watching, because this is the other thing too, I don't feel like a lot of movies at this time were attacking this idea of the American man, right? Harry in this movie is what we are all told we're supposed to be, right?
Right.
And watching George become this disintegration of the idea of the working man who provides and works hard and is a man about town. That stuff to me, as I watch, just watching Jimmy Stewart as this vessel of vulnerability, I honestly would put this in my top 10 favorite performances of all time.
Oh, yeah.
That's just to get it out before we start dissecting the actual story of the film. But I wanted to say how much this movie... Every time I watch it, my life is richer for it.
Yes.
Because eventually we're going to say some things that you guys might not like.
Yes.
But
this
is truly...
I agree. We have to get it, like, the
disclaimer
up front is, this is a beautiful film, and it does make me reevaluate how much I, like, bitch about my life every time I watch it. Like,
yes.
I swear to God, after we're done doing this, I'm going to go hug my wife right after this, and my kid's asleep right now. I'll probably give him a kiss on the cheek before he hopefully he doesn't wake up.
I'm going to continue to wait for my fucking redo, Clarence.
All right. So now that we've said our bona fides about how much we love this movie, can we talk about God playing God and how terrifying that is?
So I, at one point, was writing a horror film, and I brought you on to co-write with me, and we wrote this segment about what is the... We were in a real, like, Tarantino thing, I think.
Yeah.
And we wrote a thing about what is the scariest film of all time.
The scene takes place at a cabin, and basically they're talking about the scariest movies they've ever seen.
Essentially, it's a bunch of college kids stoned and drunk debating what's the scariest
movie. It's
so
a 10, by the way, it is a 10-page scene.
Yeah. If I remember right, in our young minds, what we said is, Rosemary's Baby, free rent and babysitters, not a bad deal.
Pretty sweet.
I think our second one was The Shining. And it was the same kind of deal, right? Free rent, whatever. I can't remember what our other ones were. But what I wrote was that It's a Wonderful Life is the scariest movie ever. And you and I continued this fucking diatribe for decades. We've been harnessing this for decades. But I think without a doubt, this is the single scariest concept that has ever been in a mainstream major motion picture, right?
Yeah.
This is a fucking guy who stays in a small town, right? So let's put it this way. So not only is God the narrator of the fucking picture show we see at the start,
not only is God so bored that he's going...
Well, just the fact that God can hear like 6 yokels in a small town and be like, well, fucking freeze the universe. We got to handle this.
Hold on.
But in the scariest way possible. So God loves George Bailey enough to let him lose his ear, to let him never... He instills in George Bailey the love for adventure, which he will never have. Right? He forces George Bailey to be a slave to the fucking financial grindstone, right? On top of the meanwhile giving all of George Bailey's friends and family the inordinate amount of success that, like, everyone he knows is like a fucking killer in success, except for him.
He's
and
the
then
only
what
one.
does he do? What does fucking God do? He fucking strikes down Uncle Billy with one of the least functioning human brains in movie history. God has essentially put this man in a jigsaw-style, unwinnable life trap. And when George Bailey says, you win, God, I can't fucking do it anymore. This sucks. He goes, now I'm going to psychologically torture the shit out of you Clockwork Orange style, and make you look at how much more miserable everyone else would be if you weren't my fucking whipping boy. That is a fucking horrifying concept.
A cosmic terror. It is a cosmic terror beyond any comprehension.
It's the scariest fucking thing, because the only thing we have control of in our life, most people, is when our life is over.
Right.
Hopefully that is not something that we ever choose to enact, right? That our life goes on and you're happy, healthy, all that. It is truly, if you think about it, the only singular decision that you have any power over. And this movie says, no, you don't. Nothing you do will ever fucking matter. The only way to get out of this fucking cosmic fucking torture chamber is if you realize that this is George Bailey's kink.
So God gives George Bailey this Job-like existence.
He doesn't give George Bailey a love for adventure. He gives George Bailey a love for safe words and prickling things.
I mean, there's like a level to it that is so, and again, like I've gotten in trouble, like banned from the kitchen for having this conversation at Christmas. Like
it's all there.
I only talk about it with you now because like my dad has legitimately been like, I don't want to talk to you anymore about this.
This is one of those things, right? Like when we bring it up, you see people get like about to hit you in the face.
People have been like visibly upset with me.
I've done this in the bar a lot, and you see people like, are they going to throw that beer glass at me?
People get like actually upset about this, but like
because really, it is such an emotionally charged movie for so many people.
It is, but when you really think about it, finally George Bailey's come to the end of his rope. He's seen all he needs to see. And he's like, I just need the sweet release. And it's
just looking at that icy cold void and he goes, you know what?
I
did my best and I can't. I did my best and I can't. So this is the thing. Lay this out in your mind as a fucking thought experiment for horror. First off, imagine if today you knew with no fucking gray area that there was an all-powerful being that was in charge of every fucking moment of your life.
Right.
Then imagine your life had gotten to such an unbearable place that you would think about jumping in that icy river, 2. 3, then look back at the fucking gauntlet of bullshit this God put in your place. And what does he get in return? 4 kids, a wife, a shitty house, and a couple people that'll throw ones in a laundry basket.
Oh, yeah, buy one. But, like, this is a huge thing.
We'll get to the ending, because there's also horror in the ending. But that's what he gets in return. This man is saving God's creations from living in a fucking shanty village.
Right.
You could argue that Pottersville is more lit than Bedford Falls. Neither here nor there. This is a fucking terrifying concept.
And this is, again, like, without...
Imagine if you were on your worst day, Alex Dandino, and I said, now you got to see how much worse it is if you don't keep fucking feeling this misery.
If you're if you're not the cosmic whipping boy for everybody, if you can't take the sins of the father onto yourself, I don't like.
All your friends will be murderers, whores, dead. Like, if you don't keep suffering. If you don't keep suffering, Uncle Billy.
But even no, I'm not ready to talk about.
And worst of all, your wife will be old.
Your wife will be a librarian.
When Clarence, of all the shit he sees, Clarence is like, you're not going to like it, George.
That's my
She's
favorite.
She's an old maid. Rolled off the couch.
It's legitimately one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
I've seen this movie 30 times, and I fucking forgot about that line, and I rolled off my couch laughing this morning.
So this is that scene. He's like, you're not going to like it, George. She never got married. I'm like, okay, cool.
As
so
he's
she's
staring
single,
at his brother's grave, right?
Yeah.
His mom doesn't know him. What's the scariest thing? Your wife's not hot anymore, George. No.
Also, he accosts her on the street. She turns around and like, she looks fine. Bro, it's fine.
She literally just looks like an entire category on a pornography website because she put glasses on.
Yeah, that's it. Like, all right, cool. So she's a Pornhub click away. Got it. It's fine.
Okay, so we just wanted to get that out of the way, right? This is, without a doubt, the scariest film ever made, right? Because the
1000%.
real-world implications of this, right, is this as scary as The Exorcist? Fuck yeah. The Exorcist might not be a demon for all you know, right? There's theories about that.
The Exorcist
and who's in charge of the demons? An all-powerful God. Neither here nor there.
The Exorcist puts it out on Front Street. This is literally God saying, I am so bored. I have to cosmically remind this gentleman.
Throw out every fucking demon movie, right? Then take slashers. Big deal. Now you know there's a guy who's actually fucking wielding Michael's knife, right? You see the two sandprints on the beach and they become one. It's because God's carrying Michael Myers and his knife right towards your heart.
So George Bailey. So like the movie starts with Clarence getting the history lesson on George Bailey. Which, all right, cool. So you find out the only way George saves his little brother and goes deaf in one ear.
Now back to the wonderfulness of the movie, all right.
Right. However, the only way, and then also George's brother goes off to the war and becomes like a war hero.
So then he's like, George, you also cost the U.S. military a whole boat of soldiers and maybe World War II.
See, seriously, his brother got the Medal of Honor, which means his brother did some fucking hardcore shit. He shot
down a plane that was trying to blow up a ship and saved thousands of lives.
Yeah, prevented a kamikaze attack. So you would allow basically another Pearl Harbor to happen just so you can hear out of your left ear.
Yeah.
It's
he prevents
the pharmacist from killing a bunch of people.
Uncle Billy's in an asylum is the only good thing he gets for
Uncle Billy being in an asylum.
That's the only fucking upgrade.
The fact that he comes back,
that and the nightlife in Pottersville are the only.
The fact that he comes back from his Pottersville quote unquote nightmare, comes back and Uncle Billy is still out. Not fair.
Hey, do you like kids?
Oh, what are we going to do?
The druggist murders them if you don't get smacked around.
Yeah, if you don't get the shit smacked out of you, the druggist murders these children.
Your mom, miserable as shit if you're not there to fucking pay the bills. Damn, dude, chill. And your wife is old and has bad vision.
Is a librarian, and she's alone.
She just reads a lot, motherfucker.
She just reads all the time and probably has a cat.
He recoils in horror. Your friend the cab driver just drives around with a straight face instead of cracking wise. How about that? The lady who tried to fuck everyone but's gonna move on and do better keeps fucking everyone. How about that?
What do you think about that? In the pool hall. What do you think about all this stuff?
Potter fucking literally rolls over the bodies of humans that you killed. George Bailey on his way to fucking drink lattes. What do you think of that?
Fucking Lionel Barrymore is maybe one of the all-time greatest villains in a movie.
So this movie has 3 performances that are absolutely breathtaking to me. And it's Potter, Clarence, and George.
Yeah.
Clarence is so fucking... He might be the most lovable character in a movie. And I fucking hate religion. But god damn it do I love Clarence. And god damn it do I hate Potter. And god damn it do I feel sorry for George Bailey.
It does just fucking work, man.
So to get one thing I want to talk about involving the actual movie and not the consequences of said movie. There is a perennial theme in this movie, right? Of George Bailey missing his boat, right? The anchor chains, the fucking train whistles, and the plane engines, right? So he misses his chance to go to college because his dad dies. And he tells Potter to suck his dick. And they're like, Potter, I'll keep sucking your dick, but you got to stay. And he's like, damn it. Right? Then Harry comes back. He's going to do it for a couple years. Harry's going to come back, right? Harry comes back. He's got a job offer to do research, right?
Yes.
George willingly says, I'll stay. Right?
Yes.
When he's about to go on his honeymoon and just at least do a European trip.
He's about to go on his honeymoon.
There's a run on the bank.
And there's a fucking run on the bank.
And Mary runs up and says, let's use this to save the building and loan. Right?
Yeah.
Mary's not even mad at him. But George is fucking mad. George puts someone in one of his nice houses, right? In Bailey Park. Because he sees Sam Wainwright's got a better car and made $1 million on bean plastic. He kicks his fucking door. Right?
Yeah.
This is all before Uncle Billy's fucking fatal flaw.
Of course.
Do you, like I think, that George Bailey is specifically choosing... George Bailey didn't miss his boats. He fucking jumped off of them. And then punishes everyone around him because he did that. He wants them to know that he's the guy who stayed?
Here's my thing. I think the first time was out of duty. You do that for your family. I think when there's a run, I think what there is.
He told his dad specifically, he's like, I can't be this fucking guy who's trying to save 3 cents on a length of pipe.
But see, this is important.
Okay.
This is what's important about George Bailey. We established since he was a child, George looks out for other people. This entire movie,
that scene when he saves his brother, the scene when he saves Old Man Gower, is a masterclass in
every
filmmaking.
Time. I cry every single time, without a doubt.
Stuff, yeah.
It is absolutely, it's a beautiful moment. And I mean, again, these are kid actors too. And again, I'm just like fucking floored every time. But this is like a really important thing about George Bailey. George Bailey is inherently a giving person. He's a good man. He's a good person. I think is that it's this. That is like,
or is he like the person who fucking gives lima beans to the food drive that he's had in his cabinet for 3 years and he wants all the high fives?
He's not. This is the fatal flaw of George Bailey. It's a good and a bad thing. It's the double-edged sword of being a giving person. You help people. It's part of your nature. Like when it's part of your nature and you help people, it is.
It's unfair because we see his dad as this like deified socialist, right? And we don't ever see the actual like foreskin of that, right?
Well, to be fair, I mean, this movie is literally about reaping the benefits of capitalism. But, you know, neither here nor there.
No, this is a fucking Bernie Sanders style guy trying to survive the fucking gaping maw of capitalism.
This movie, Bernie Sanders wants everyone to watch this and be like, well, that'll never work.
Yeah, and his son, whose kink is also getting spanked by capitalism. Just saying. But when he's sitting there, I love the idea when his dad's like, it's cool, go. Like, it is antiquated, right? Like, we'll crawl to Potter, go.
Right.
And he just looks at his dad and he goes, you want to know something, Dad? You want a shock? I think you're a great guy. There is a non-cynical read to that. Like, this is a man who really, really admired his father.
Yes.
And truly loved his father. And he already worked there before he was going to take off, right?
I think this is why I get emotional when I watch this movie, particularly. This scene is always because, look, my dad worked really hard when we were kids, and he provided for us. Like my family, we were a very happy family. Like we got along, and we moved a lot. But
rub it in, guy with a dad. It's cool, man.
But this is the thing: is my
Go ahead,
father?
Hee-haw, I get it. Hee-haw.
My father. I'm not. I'll let you do it, but this is like legitimate.
I know.
My dad also became a lot of other people's dads. I don't know why, but this is the father.
He's the man. He's the best.
This is
guy.
the father that I had, and I'm getting emotional talking about my dad because I love my dad a lot. But this is because
so uncool.
My dad is a great guy, and because my father is that kind of giving person, he allowed that. Like he took people like that in a lot. Like it happened a lot when we were kids, and I never really understood it until I was a lot older. Like these were people that just became part of our family, and they were always, family and like just, oh, those are our friends. But I realized what they needed was my dad. They needed somebody who was important. And that to me is why George Bailey is such a fascinating character in just pop culture in general, is because George Bailey doesn't want to admit that he is that same kind of man. And that's a hard thing to have to admit to yourself, is that while you want to be this world adventurer, this other person, this great guy, maybe at the end of this swashbuckling, whatever you want to call it, maybe at the end of the day, your great adventure is that you are just a good man. And that, I think, is a very hard thing for George Bailey to even, especially at the beginning of the movie, wrap his head around, let alone rectify with.
But why is it hard to just be a great guy, do you think?
I think it's hard to be a great guy because it takes a lot of it. Being a great guy means giving yourself to other people. In this regard, the George Bailey regard, there's other ways to there's other ways to give to other people.
Because we spend a lot of time with George and see how bitchy he is, and especially how not good he is to Mary often.
Very not good.
It does not come off as the altruistic version like his dad. To be fair, I think if you were inside any marriage, there's probably a lot more of that going on than we assume from the outside, right?
Yes.
I think that is one of the sad things about marriage, is that when it's down, I think the first people that you start attacking are your partners, and that's not a And I'm not,
No.
hopefully most marriages aren't, and I'm an anomaly, but I know when things are bad, the first thing we do is turn on each other, and then we're like, fuck, we got to regroup, we're sorry.
It's the same thing. I do the same. But
I'm sure all the listeners have perfect marriages. And
but
I'm
I'll
glad
tell you
for that.
right now, that is exactly, like, to be honest with you, that's kind of what marriage is supposed to be.
He does in a really horrifying way.
He's not a good...
Their first meet cute at the pool is a classic scene. It's great. Them singing, the old man telling him to kiss her. She's naked in the bush. All that is great.
Yeah.
Right? And then he leaves her in the bush, and he has to run to his dad, right? And that look on her face as she watches them go. Them breaking the windows in the fucking, Conjuring house, great.
Yes. That they end up fucking
But when he goes to her house that last time, right? And he's like, fuck, I don't get to go. Harry's going to get a good job, and I'm still in Bedford Falls. He goes to her house and seemingly is like, I will take you as something just to take away from Sam Wainwright. And he treats her so shitty that she breaks her record. She's crying. He's almost like, I'm just going to fucking kiss you in front of your mom. Fuck Sam Wainwright. It's pretty rough. And even in the next scene when they cut to the fucking rice being thrown, you see her mom is still horrified by it.
It's not, but
it's a really hard scene to watch.
But
that is a scene that is, you cannot, it's one of the only scenes you have no empathy for George Bailey with, in my opinion.
I don't have empathy for George Bailey, but what I sympathize with is that...
Is settling?
Look,
our wives probably empathize with George Bailey.
That wasn't what I was going to say at all, for one. What I was going to say was the sympathy I have for George Bailey is that I am also not the smoothest person in the world, so... The fact that he bungled the whole fucking marriage proposal thing makes a lot of sense.
No fucking way you ever have treated Andrea like that in front of her parents.
Oh, no, absolutely not. But again,
you are a gentleman, if nothing else.
I'm not saying I'm not. I'm saying that I'm not smooth. So that is like...
that is a big difference between like, fuck ya, let the cows fuck your corpse, fuck ya. And anyway, he doesn't actually say that line. That's an ad lib. That's me trying to make my point with lies. That's fine.
That was good.
But I think my point still stands despite my
No, I don't
perjury.
disagree with you. Like there's a lot of the way that they are that is.
Do you think if Sam Wainwright's not on the phone in that moment, that he still fucking stays there and like throws down with her, or he just leaves and makes her feel like shit? I think there's something about in that moment.
Again, this goes
Sam
back
Wainwright's girl, and he's going to take that. And that is the scene that's hard for me.
I think this is the part.
And Harry slapping his fucking housekeeper's ass. That was not great. That is not
great. Harry did not have a good moment.
Harry, no medals of freedom for you in your own home.
No medals of honor. No medal of honor. I'll get you out of an ass.
Leave Annie
slap.
alone. Bad behavior.
Unless
him and Annie have that kind of thing.
Again, this goes to like, what is your willingness for George? Like George Bailey is a flawed character without a doubt. Like there's no way around that. And I think that's what.
But that's the thing. Mary is such a loving and fulfilled person, it feels like.
But isn't that like part of the look? Not to put too fine a point on it.
And this could be a
you and I are not
POV problem of societal roles at that time.
Sure. I mean, look,
he treats Mary like shit. Like 95% of the movie.
Neither you nor I have ever been that terrible to our wives. However, don't you feel pretty lucky that we definitely got away with murder getting married to them? Like, there's a lot of this like level.
Agree.
Like, I cannot believe I got away with it.
It is that thing, right? When I'm mad and I take it out on people near me, but I always come back. I'm like, I'm fucking sorry. I fucked up.
Of course.
So like, I get it.
You always
there
apologize.
is a thing, but he's so fucking brutal to her. And the scene that is fucking amazing in this movie that I love, one of like the 50 scenes I love, when he survives the fucking building and loan day and he's dancing with the $2, right?
Mama
he's like, I gotta go find my wife. And they drive him home, and his friends have put like fucking travel posters out, and they're singing to him. He's got a candlelit dinner. When he walks in that house, and she is just smiling, look at what I've done. I've gotten 2 rooms livable, right? We're gonna eat and bang, whatever.
Right.
And she tells him, she said, when I threw that rock, this is what I dreamed of. And in that moment, you see in George Bailey's face, he loves this woman, but this is his fucking life sentence. And he is not happy with it. And I think that juxtaposition, right, is something that is so fucking relatable and human. There are just people that are fulfilled and happy, and there are people that everything like that, they see that as like, oh no, it's encroaching. And in that moment, because he tells her, he goes, "You're terrific," I think, right? Or "You're great." He doesn't say, "This is great. You're great." He doesn't want to be in that fucking ghost house.
I think there's another read on that though. And this is the character development you have. This is the arc that you always have to look for. Like when we bitch about like one note characters and that kind of stuff, especially in a movie where we see this in like when they do adaptations of A Christmas Carol now.
Right.
It's very difficult to watch because like we've seen like about 50 at this point in our lives.
Yeah.
And
this is an adaptation of A Christmas Carol, essentially.
Right. And everybody's always trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to telling that story. Mm-hmm. You don't need to. Yeah. And I think this is what the read I always have in that moment is not, oh, fuck. Like, I'm stuck here. Like, there's a million things running through your mind when you see that kind of thing. You come home and this drafty ass house that you never wanted, but what it is the person you love, the person you've decided you're going to spend your life with, someone who means a great deal to you, even though you were totally shitty with them in the first place to get the
you nagged the shit out of them.
You nagged the shit out of them,
and now you're cool. Now you're cool.
You see this person, and they say, "It is what I wished for." You're like,
but this is the thing, you know this too, right? Because you're a creative guy, and we talk all the time about how we worry that we're not doing this and that. You had to have had this. And this might be a little personal to say on the pod. I've had that day where I'm so fucking upset and frustrated. My depression's kicking in, whatever. And Amy just wants to hug me. And she's like, "I just love you. I love you for you. I wouldn't marry anyone else. You're everything. Like, I'm so happy in this marriage." And I just, for half a second, I almost get mad at her. Where I'm just like, you should want better. You are, and it's.
I think about
is that thing though, right? Where when we are not happy with ourselves, we get mad at people who just appreciate us for who we are.
You said it right there. Like that's like to me, that's the alternate read. Is like Mary says, like, this is what I wished for, and that to me is because I have the same conversation. I've had that conversation with Andrea this year multiple times. Like, this is.
I'm actually killing it. I'm on the upslide. Amy might be in trouble. I might be
like Andrea. Like Andrea's had to tell me, she's like, "I love our life. Like I love what we've built together." And I'm like, and I've told her, I'm like, "I'm sorry that I'm not." I've had. This is also very personal. I've said at least on 3 occasions this year, "I'm sorry that I am not the person I said I was going to be."
I thought you were going to say sorry for my tiny hog, but
that's also part of it. But
that's built into every.
That's always built into apologies. But I've said that, and she's like, "I love our life," and that to me, like. What it is, it's not, "Oh man, like I want you to want the same things I do." It's that you're frustrated with yourself that you don't value that moment. You're not valuing that moment the same way that person is. And I think that's like, that's always what the read for me is always George Bailey is upset with himself more than anything.
He loves her. He doesn't love the idea of Bedford Falls and all of that. He doesn't like the small, simple life, right? And I think that is such a relatable thing, right? Because essentially what George wants to be is Potter and Harry and Sam Wainwright, but still have all the friends. He wants to be. There's that scene where he's like, he's mad he can't go to World War II because of his ear. The reality of World War II was that a fucking ton of people didn't get to come back. Very few people came back as Harry, right?
I'll say this. This is another cultural thing, though, and this is a really important thing. Like, war to us is very different. Like,
I agree. That's true.
Like,
there is a patriotism to it.
The patriotism of World War II, like,
there's not an enormous amount of patriotism left in our generation.
No, there's really not. Not in this generation. But, like, both. Like, I had two uncles.
You ever just log on to Twitter and you're like, "I'm not fighting for this."
I had 2 great uncles who stormed Normandy Beach, but like, and there are people who were 4F in that time that committed suicide because they couldn't go over there. Like the shame, true. Like that. So I think to me, that's always how you like
cultural.
That's
read
a harder
is different,
one,
right? Just reading it as the character is that he wants to be the war hero.
Right. Well, he wants to be that's an adventure.
While also, I think he does truly, truly love Harry. I don't think he begrudges Harry his success and getting the wife. And
George,
I don't think he looked at Harry bringing a wife home as that he bamboozled him. I think he truly loves him, but he's jealous as fuck of him.
Other than Uncle Billy, George truly loves everybody in his life.
No one can love Uncle Billy. That's why
Uncle
has
Billy
a pet
is
raven.
Literally an unlovable piece of shit. But
if you have a pet fucking crow or raven, that's a red flag. That's a red flag behavior, right? If you have to keep track of your life with strings on your finger, that is a specific idiosyncrasy
you
that
shouldn't
you
be
are
working
weaponizing.
in a
Uncle
building
Billy
alone.
could have a fucking piece of paper. Uncle Billy could have a notebook where he writes shit down.
Uncle Billy could not work at a building alone.
Uncle Billy is the only guy that makes George Bailey happy to be George Bailey. He's the only. George Bailey walks in every morning. He goes,
"Oh my god,
yeah.
my life is fucking awful."
He sits down in his
Uncle
office.
Billy.
He kicks his fucking long legs up. He takes a sip of coffee. He looks at Uncle Billy. Half a hard on. Half a hard on. That's how he starts his day every fucking day.
He is
Uncle
half
Billy
chubbed,
is
for sure.
just the classic fucking rube. And I think he is George is highly capable and Uncle Billy is not. And the fact that Uncle Billy lost the money so he could talk shit about how great the Baileys are, there is a delicious irony in that moment.
There's a very delicious irony to it.
Yeah.
And you
Uncle
just want to
Billy
beat the shit out of Billy.
shitty family member who has the greatest heart, but you also can't stand him. You're also like, fuck, this guy makes my life. But no, I think that idea, though, right? Because there's even that moment, right, where Sam Wainwright comes back in town. George has brought a factory to the town. There's going to be a bunch of jobs. He's giving people good housing, right?
Right.
He sees Sam Wainwright come, right, as he's welcoming the Martinis to their house, right? After driving their goat and kids. At their house, when they're moving, he loves it. He gets there, he's speechifying, right? Mary gives them bread so they'll never know hunger, right? Salt so life will have favor, and wine so they can always be happy or whatever.
Right.
George wants to stop that for a moment when he sees Sam Wainwright. And Mary goes, who cares? And she continues, because to Mary it means something that these people also have a home and a family like she loves, right? Mm-hmm. It was really touching, right? And George goes and talks to him, and Sam Wainwright's like, hey, you could have been rich. I'm going to Florida. And drives off. And after that beautiful moment, George Bailey, all he can do is kick his car door. And that is the constant fucking pull of our lives, I feel like, as adults, right? We work hard to make money to buy shit we don't need. And if we can't buy enough shit, right? Or we try to buy the shit so we seem like we're having a happy life so we can put it online on social media. Then we're not saving enough and we're worried about that. And it's this fucking horrible thing. In that moment, George Bailey is truly helping another human being.
Yes.
Right? He's giving those people a gateway to a better life. And 5 seconds later, all he can think about is how he wishes he was rich and driving to Florida. And that is the pull of him. And it's hard for me. I'm probably more cynical than most. It's hard for me to draw the line of, is this just an altruistic guy who's like, oh, shucks? Or is this a guy who was afraid to take his shot? Right? We talked about this a lot when I was used to be an actor, right? Is that the reason auditioning is hard is not, because it's hard to get a part or it's hard to act. It's hard to just have someone tell you they don't want you hundreds of times.
Yes.
Right? To show up in a room where there's all these other people, you're like, fuck, I'm not special. And this sucks. People don't want me, right? And it feels very luck of the draw until you are a name, right? And there's something about this mindset of the actor who doesn't try. Because in their heads, they can be like, well, I had to have a family. Well, I'm a little old now. Well, mom got sick. And that becomes this defense mechanism against, now you always have this plausible deniability that you had all the talent. Life didn't work out. There's a part of me that watches this and feels like that's what George Bailey did. Is that George Bailey was afraid he was not going to be Harry or Sam Wainwright or Potter. So he stays here and he fucking takes these moments where he is the big man in town and all these people love him for what he's doing. And I'm not saying that to villainize him, right? A lot of people live their lives and do a lot of good because there's this theory, right, that there is no true altruism, right? That When you give your $1 to donate the Salvation Army, you don't care about the charity. You care that you're a good guy on your way out with your fucking $300 at Target. You gave $1 to charity, right? And so I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but there is this idea as I get older that I think George chained himself to Bedford Falls in a way. I recognize that myself when I watch it. I doubt most people see it that way, but...
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily care. I mean...
Because in that scene specifically, when Sam Wainwright pulls up, the veil seems to slip on his little ruse he has going. Which isn't a ruse. He is truly a guy helping out his community.
No, he's doing the right thing for himself. But
when
it's
he
one of those
sees it through Sam's eyes, it doesn't do it for him anymore.
Sure.
He feels pitiful and less than.
Yes.
Which is sad.
That. It is. It's very... What's sad about... But that's part of the character development. That's part of George's development overall, is that by the end, George understands that all this work he did in this town, this little town that, and he says it it's when he comes back to life, quote unquote, and he's running through town, he says it to everything. He says hello to all of it, because it's a matter of realizing that while you didn't go to, I don't even remember half the places you wanted to go. You didn't go to Morocco. You didn't go to Casablanca. You didn't go to Japan. You didn't go to Russia. Like all these places, just because you didn't go somewhere doesn't mean you didn't build something. Right. And I think that's part of the importance of, because you have to, like, you can't just be this thing where he's this bitter asshole the entire time. Granted, they did not do a good job of covering it up for most part.
He literally is a bitter asshole until like the very last bit of the movie.
The veil slipping is important because we got to be able to see that this guy, like, even though he's happy that he can help people, there is this part of him that still is like, it's that twinge. It's the same thing we deal with when we're trying to be creative.
It's also the social, like George Bailey would melt in the social media era. Because it's something we all deal with, right? And I think that's what he's dealing with in that moment is this, when you have a truly good and happy moment, there's something now we have in the social media era where like, well, someone's having a better moment. We always devalue our own. Like for me, it's like this morning when I was watching this movie, my kid just came and curled up on me. And you're like, that little moment means so much to me. But then you start comparing it against, some guy's doing blow on the top of the Himalayas. You're like, this doesn't seem as cool. But it is. It is great. It is a great thing, right? I would also love to be doing blow on the Himalayas. Granted, I would never hike or be in the mountains, but, neither. But we devalue our own experiences all the time.
Not using quite that colorful of an analogy. Yeah. Like, my experience with having a 3-year-old is its own adventure in and of itself. Like, there's things that I can say I've done that not other people can say they've done either. Like, and I make my own little strides here and there, and we do this podcast, and there are things that I feel it's hard at 36 even to find that kind of value in the things that I do. It's very difficult for me. I don't know why. And that's like always been a thing, but that's how I am. That's how I've always felt. So I relate not in the shittiness, but in the like grass is always greener thing to George Bailey. Like I'm always wondering, like, did I fuck up? Have I fucked up? And like, I live with someone who tells me pretty routinely no, but it's hard to shake that.
Well, there's also this like inevitability of the movie that eventually it feels like every American is going to crawl to a Potter. Yes. And no matter what you do, however great you are, right? A year after you're dead, it's gone, right? Like the general people won't fucking care or remember. I don't remember or care about any of these people that have done great things when they die a year later. The only people are like your family, right? And your very close friends. They will remember you, and hopefully you gave them something to carry on with. So it is this inevitability, right?
Right. I mean, and this is like, this is like when he goes to him. This is like Lionel Barrymore's like great moment of being biggest piece of shit.
Well, it's the two scenes together, right? It's when George is enjoying the cigar and he's about to sign with Potter.
Right.
And he's like, no. I have a kink for failing. Right. And he's like fucking whipping his ass, and that's the director's cut thing. But when he crawls back, and fucking
Lionel Barrymore lays that hammer down pretty nastily. Like, it's pretty rare you have a villain not like pretty rare you have a villain that isn't going to kill someone who literally is like, man, you're more valuable dead than alive.
That desk
Shit.
and he just shits on all of their lives and says, someday you will all be coming and sitting in that fucking low chair and I will fucking take what I want. He is, like Thanos, an inevitability in Bedford Falls. He doesn't have to do shit.
Right.
They're all going to come to him eventually. Because what happens when George Bailey dies? He's got to fucking force one of his sons to go through this fucking hell.
And like Ant-Man,
George
Bailey is pretty much in
George Bailey shrinks into Potter's a noose. And fucking comes to. Take that, Potter! He fucking slices a little hole, jumps up in there. Yeah!
No.
And then the guy who jerks Potter off is like, dear God, I'll push you around now. You're the king. He's like, that's right. Stroke it.
So.
That's also a director's cut.
So George basically has to be convinced that his life is worth meaning.
Well,
and I think
the scene before that is such, again, it's such a scene when you get older, you're like, fuck, I have had that day. He goes home and his kids practice. Like, my kid's in basketball now, so the cacophony soundtrack of my life is nonstop fucking basketball dribbling in the house, right? But the kid's trying to practice the piano, right? The other kid's like, hallelujah. And it's like, I don't fucking know. I'm not in grade school. His other kid's upstairs sick, right? The other kid, is fucking meh, meh, meh. And the wife's like, isn't this great? And you're like, I want to fucking die. Yeah. I want to sit in a fucking soundproof room and cry, but I have to do this parent shit. And of course he does the wrong thing. He fucking screams at the teacher. That scene when he kicks the fucking table over in the living room and his family, especially his kids, look at him with that fucking look of terror, that abject horror.
Yeah.
I have a dad have fucking lost it. And I have a loud booming voice when I yell. And I've seen my kids shake and look at me like they're a lawyer and I'm a T-Rex.
Yep.
And it is the worst
terrible.
Scumbag feeling. You're like, I'm their dad. And because this is the thing you don't know until you're a dad is that we're all just very fallible pieces of shit and we're trying to learn on the fly.
Miserably fallible.
We don't have any answers, right? There are no answers anywhere. And you go through it and sometimes you're having a bad day and you raise your voice. And I see my kids look at me like I'm a scary guy and not their dad who protects them from the world. Mm-hmm. And it is crushing. And I think that is the very moment when George is like, I am hurting these innocent kids so much. I think that's the moment that fully breaks them.
Agreed.
That is the worst fucking feeling in the world.
Yeah, no, it's
and
the
if you're a
worst feeling
parent,
in
you
the world.
probably had that day, and
when you scare your kid
feeling.
when you scare your child with the discipline that you have to dole out because like just the shouting. Like I'm the same way, and I don't like raising my voice.
Oh,
but
sometimes you'll do that. You're yelling, and you like stomp towards them. Because it's just how your body's moving, and they're like, "Fuck, he's huge," and it's fucking horrible feeling.
Yeah, I mean, there's and that but like they're the last people on earth that you want to make feel that way, and you're like, I have nothing else to.
And they're not doing anything to make you mad; they're just existing and being happy with no. There's something about their carefree joy that just grates on your fucking heart. It's fucking terrible. But in that moment, because he then goes to a bar and he fucking has a drink and gets punched out. He prays to a God he doesn't believe in. But it's that moment when his family looks at him, and I think Mary even says, like, I think you should, and she cuts herself off.
Yeah.
But I think he finishes that sentence in his mind, and he's going to go, man. And the grading journey for us, the audience, to relive our fucking many mistakes via George Bailey as we walk to that bridge, it's brutal. It is a perfect example of that. The countdown of the bomb is better than the explosion.
Yeah.
Right? That's where all the fucking juice and drama is. And yeah, he gets to the bridge and Clarence jumps in first, right? That shot where we first see Clarence fucking like leaning up like he's on a fucking 90s hip hop album. Perfect.
Love it.
And yeah, that's when we enter the I wish I was never born. Fine, you're never born. Right? That segment of the movie, while it is interesting and obviously like a classic bit of cinema, I think that opening of the movie is that's where all the shit I love is.
Yes. I actually think that the Pottersville section.
Yeah.
Other than
the last third of the movie is fine. That
Yeah.
first part is where all the glory is.
Agreed. Like the resolution of the movie is okay, but the glory of the movie is
I do have a question
who
for
George
you.
Bailey is. Sure.
Would you rather live in Bedford Falls or Potterville?
I gotta tell you, Pottersville looks pretty bitchy.
I was just like, fuck, dude. I bet they are selling fucking studio apartments to hipsters like crazy. Because I was like, let's see. Bar, brothel, gambling place, bar.
Brothel. Yeah, I mean, it's like the NoHo Arts District.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a fucking gentrified downtown. What are we talking about? I mean, I guess you couldn't gentrify Bedford Falls any harder, but...
I mean, you throw in an Urban Outfitters, you're pretty much good to go.
I mean, that is every fucking little spot in LA. It looks exactly.
Yeah, so.
I was just saying, I was like, Bedford Falls looks stupid. Like, oh, there's a building alone. I don't even know what the fuck that is. That's a stupid building. What the fuck? They have strippers in there? Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Can I go gamble on the Dolphins and get a face ride? Yeah, come on down to Pottersville. 2-for-1 specials.
I mean,
you know, just out of camera too, there's like a fucking Hooters and all kinds.
There's a B-dubs.
I think while that scared people of that era, I think all of us watching it today are like, fuck, I would way rather live in Pottersville.
I think the cynical adults watching it today would be like, to be fair,
yeah.
If the worst thing that happened when George Bailey was
I want to live in the town where everyone's the guy who's worried about his grandpappy's tree? Or do I want to be where every fucking building is throwing down?
So wait a second. George Bailey isn't around yet. Uncle Billy's institutionalized.
So what we're learning is that fucking, George Bailey's a narc and Uncle Billy deserves the asylum.
Yeah.
George Bailey's the fucking cosmic hall monitor that made these people not want a nightlife.
And again, this is, look, and this is just me. This is just, if you're going to have, like, if someone's going to be a librarian, Donna Reed, get the fuck out of here. All right. Donna Reed for 1946 is a fucking smoke show. There's no way Sam Wainwright wouldn't have come right back and smoked and snack. Yeah, come on.
Hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw. Hee-haw. No, he does that when he fucks. For sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But this is also a chance. Well, again, I think the movie kind of freezes for me. Because the thought experiment is fine, but I run through the thought experiment. At this point, it's hard for me to remember the first time I watched it, right? But the thought experiment is essentially over for me at this point. And I just want to get to that last bit, right?
Yeah.
But him and Nix, that's more of a Clarence scene to shine, right? Clarence is fucking killing it in that scene. We see Old Man Gower. That's devastating. He killed some kids, right? The scenes that really get you, right? Because Mary doesn't even do anything for me. Oh no, the lady I treated like shit is leading a good life.
Oh no,
the scene that is fucking horrifying is imagining you go to your mother's house and she looks miserable and treats you like an asshole she doesn't know. That fucking kills me. Bad. Right? When his mom opens that door and there is a darkness on her face, right? And he's like, Mom. And she's like, wow, you don't know, you get out of here. That is the scene in the movie that really, because I was like, all right, Nix is a little rowdier. Pottersville is lit.
Yeah.
Harry died when he was a kid. That's sad. But the mom is devastating.
It's not good.
But yeah, so that's the one, right? And then George sees her. He punches a cop who, again, just opening fire in the fucking very busy downtown, right? Pottersville is a wild ass place. But that moment when he runs back, right? Because Clarence is really orchestrating this through, right? He goes to his house and it's empty. But when he gets back to that bridge and he's just like, I want to live. Please take me back. I want to live. There are two things that happen in that moment that still give me chills every time, right? The slow changing of the snow and that little audio that lets us know he made it back. It's such a beautiful and cathartic moment that we are so fucking happy that this guy gets to go to jail in 2 months and whatever. But that it's a brilliant transition out of that scene because it really hits a fevered pitch as we're at the end of the Pottersville nightmare. But what do you make of this return to Bedford Falls?
I mean, it's one of the greatest cinematic moments of all time. It's a man who's decided that, like, yeah, like, you didn't get to live this really weird choice in, like, how exciting your life's supposed to be. Like, it's not that, oh, I'm going to go be an actor, or I'm going to go, like, work in Hollywood. It's like, I'm just going to travel the world, whatever. But, like, it's this realization that other than being arrested shortly, your life has been pretty nice so far.
Yeah, I think just because the bank examiner had a couple whips of eggnog, I think there's still some fucking huge legally dubious issues.
What? We'll get to it. But
and also, I don't know how much. I mean, how much are these people actually throw? I would love to think that at the end, when he fucking empties out the basket, he's like, "We made $86. What the fuck?" I mean, I know Sam Wainwright bails him out, but
no, we all know Sam Wainwright forks over the $8,000. But
running through Bedford Falls, joyously cheering the town that he's hated and thought of as a prison, and hearing people call back in response to him, wishing him a Merry Christmas. It's lovely, man. I think it's something that really hits home for a lot of us. But the scene when he runs in to his house and all the guys are there to arrest him.
Yeah.
But when he runs up and he grabs the knob and he gives it a kitten, you know, the knob that comes off all the time, right? Not Potter's knob.
Yeah,
He grabs it and he gives it a kiss and he's happy that it falls off, right? And when the kids just descend on him.
Oh, man.
And when Mary comes in and he grabs her, right? And it's the poster image, right? That we all love. Yeah. And he runs down holding Mary's hand as that kid is draped on him. He's carrying a kid. In that moment, the chaos that made him a monster before, he's like, this is what it is, right? This is the fucking soundtrack of a life worth living. And it's fucking beautiful, man. When he runs down and they all run in to give him their fucking ones that they would have been throwing in Pottersville, but they live in Bedford Falls. So they're throwing their ones. And then that fucking piece of shit Uncle Billy comes in and joins the party. It's like, not you! You
not
get
you.
The fuck
get out.
Dude, the fact that he didn't fucking shoot Uncle Billy. Bert, shoot him! That is... Uncle Billy just put him through a literal, life-changing event.
Literally, like, it bothers me that Uncle Billy is like, oh, yeah, you might go to jail.
The
like,
fact that
no,
that piece of shit showed his face.
What a fucking scumbag.
When he made George Bailey want to kill himself and then find out there's an even scarier fate awaiting him.
Yeah.
By a merciless God. Uncle Billy shows up tapping Harry on the shoulder and it's like, you! I'm going to fucking strangle you to death with your fucking ring finger string.
I'll fucking kill you.
Oh my God, dude. I know he can't do anything because God has punished him to this fucking Twilight Zone episode. But he should have fucking murdered Uncle Billy.
He should have just fucking murdered him in front of everyone.
The next day, Uncle Billy probably ends up in that fucking river, and no one misses him or says anything. Uncle Billy being at that house is a fucking insult. But, again, not to be cynical, watching those people come in and say, even the guy who, like, when there's a run on the bank, and he's like, I want my full $262, he comes back and helps George, right? And Annie saying she was saving up money for a divorce in case she got a husband. It's just hit after hit after hit. Yeah. And it's beautiful. And even the examiners are giving money and they're singing. And Uncle Billy, that piece of shit's over there probably losing other shit. He probably takes the fucking hamper and throws it in the fire because that's what he does. But it's just, it is an overwhelmingly joyous eruption.
Yeah.
And at the moment, right, he gets the book from Clarence, right? And it has that, no man with friends is a failure. I'm going to get teared up again. And he's holding his kid and the fucking bell rings. And you know that Clarence got his wings. It's perfect. It's fucking perfect. It's perfect an ending to a film, except for when you put it out 2 weeks and you're like,
right,
this is still horrible. And George Bailey wakes up every night saying, is God coming for me again?
Like, it's perfectly uncynical until
we make it cynical, right? It is
until you make it cynical, which is you're like, oh wow, so the minute the cameras cut, the cops are like, all right, well, you made $250.
George Bailey goes to bed, right? Maybe he gets to clap it, probably not. He's probably got to put some toys together, stay up and pretend to be Santa, right? He wakes up the next day with no sleep. He's been drunk, beaten up, jumped in a river, thought about killing himself, realizes he has to murder Uncle Billy. Potter's still going to continue those charges. Because this is the other thing. Everyone in the town is giving him that money that night because it feels good on Christmas Eve, right? Again, George Bailey and the people of Bedford Falls have a charity kink.
Yep.
What happens the next morning when they're like, wait, did George actually steal the $8,000? Did George, because he took responsibility for it and didn't out that piece of shit Uncle Billy.
Right.
They're going to start saying, did he actually steal that money?
So here's my
And there's going to be questions. And are we to assume Uncle Billy won't keep fucking up? George Bailey has to kill Uncle Billy.
I mean, that does make Potter like the most despicable person, because that means, he went out and spent $8,000 on just like some
put that in his fucking big ass bank account. And it does. That's not his fault. If your fucking enemy tells you to suck his dick and then puts his $8,000 in the newspaper, I'd do the same shit. Uncle Billy's been fucking playing loose and fast for a long time. But also, get this. So every night George Bailey goes to bed. The next time he has a bad day, the next time Uncle Billy loses some money, the next day Mary, starts like, oh, that guy down there at the library, he's a pretty good looker, right? The next time his kids fucking drive him nuts, he cannot allow himself to express a normal range of human emotions for fear that God will put him back in the blender. He is now a mouse who is not allowed to experience human reactions. And if at the end of this movie you're saying me the entire plight of a man's life who lives in a ghost house, right, who has the fucking worst uncle ever, how many times do you think they're going to fill that laundry basket up for George?
Not that many.
Do we know this is God that helped him?
Or is it the devil?
Yeah.
Or is it Beelzebub?
I'm just saying. Or is it Beelzebub? Was that not Nebula's we saw, but the butthole of hell?
Look,
I feel like such a douche for throwing this tar upon one of the most joyous endings ever.
We take these shots. We have to, because
if you think about it, though, it's all there.
It's all there. Like, this is the thing.
If we were good enough to write that shit in, we would be so famous we wouldn't have a podcast.
This is what's important about the Frank Capra mythos and like what it is, because yes, it's all there. Like, it's ripe for the taking, as we've taken it the entire hour we've been talking about this movie. This is the most important thing about that, though, is the movie is trying so hard, and it's telling us you should go the opposite. Like, you should zig rather than zag. It's asking us to be hopeful. It's asking us to do the thing that George Bailey can't seem to do for himself, which is look at everything that you have here. And that, I think, is the hardest part about that. That's really what the movie is. It's to melt the cynic's heart. And granted, it doesn't, because we're cynical.
I mean, it still does, though, because I'm still sitting there crying, and you're like, fuck.
Of course, it still works. But I'm saying,
you start examining your own life.
That's what this movie is supposed to do.
Because I've seen it 50 times, I start filling in the voids and doing jokes and shit. But the ending of this movie is unadulterated good stuff injected right into your vein at an overdose level. I mean, it's an absolutely perfectly crafted movie, in my opinion. I just think it's fucking amazing. And I love spending time, especially this time of year, sitting with your own thoughts with Clarence as a guide, right? That, again, all the shit we talked and jokes we made. Oh, like, if you told me I could have 10 movies for the rest of my life, this would have to be one of them.
Yes.
Not even that it's one of my favorite 10. It's that important to me that I would need to rewatch it. I'm not a movie rewatcher, but I always come back to this one.
It's just a beautiful film, and it means a lot to me, and I love my dad. That's all.
It also means a lot to me, and I wish I had a dad. So, no, what can you say, Taryn? Thank you for finally giving us the reason to talk about one of our favorite movies of all time. I hope you guys have enjoyed this double feature. This month, the pod's stuffing your stockings. That's right. These are all movies that are patron selected. We did our drawing to see which movies we would cover. So every movie this month on the main feed and on our Patreon feed was selected by our patrons, because we are thankful for them to the extreme. Thank them for their support. If you want to get in on having a voice on what we talk about on this show, you can join our Patreon, patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod, We appreciate it. Thank you so much. That is a wonderful gift to us, and hopefully in return to you. The YouTube Film Alchemist, the email filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We are on whatever social media survives the onslaught. And make sure you're leaving 5-star ratings and reviews for us everywhere you find podcasts. Please and thank you. What a great night. Thank you again to Taryn Conway for this amazing double.